The galaxy had always known about Earth. For thousands of years, countless alien civilizations watched the small blue planet from a safe distance. They sent probes. They recorded data. They studied the strange creatures that lived there. And what they found terrified them beyond measure. Earth was not like other worlds. Most planets that supported life were gentle places with mild weather and calm environments. Earth was the opposite. It was a world of extreme heat and freezing cold. It had storms that could flatten cities and earthquakes that could swallow mountains. The oceans were filled with predators. The land was crawling with venomous creatures. Even the smallest insects could kill with a single bite. The beings who lived on this nightmare world were called humans. They were soft and fragile compared to many species. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural armor. But somehow they had not only survived on their deadly planet, they had conquered it. They built cities where volcanoes erupted. They crossed oceans filled with monsters. They climbed mountains where the air was too thin to breathe. Nothing could stop them. The Galactic Council classified Earth as a Category 9 death world. This was the highest danger rating possible. They decided long ago that humans were too dangerous to contact. Better to leave them alone on their terrible planet and hope. They never found a way to reach the stars. But humans did reach the stars. They built ships and launched themselves into the void. They colonized nearby worlds and kept pushing further into the unknown. The Galactic Council watched with growing concern but still refused to make contact. They hoped that if they ignored the humans long enough, the problem would go away. Commander Daniel Harper had no idea that alien eyes had been watching his species for centuries. He stood on the bridge of the USS Sentinel, a deep space reconnaissance vessel assigned to patrol the outer edges of human territory. The ship was not large, but it was fast and well equipped. Its crew of 43 men and women had been together for 2 years. They knew each other well and worked like a single organism. Daniel was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and tired eyes that had seen too much empty space. He had joined the space program because he believed humanity was meant to explore. He believed there was something wonderful waiting for them out there among the stars. So far, he had found only silence and darkness. But he never stopped hoping that the Sentinel was running routine scans near the Vega system. There was nothing special about this sector. No planets worth exploring. No resources worth mining. Just empty space stretching in every direction. The crew was bored. They had been on patrol for 3 months, and nothing interesting had happened. Lieutenant Laura Mitchell sat at the communications station. She was young with short brown hair and a quick mind. Her job was to monitor all incoming signals and filter out the noise of the universe. Most of what she heard was just static, the background hum of creation. But on this particular day, something changed. A signal cut through the static like a knife. Laura sat up straight in her chair. Her fingers moved across the console as she tried to lock onto the source. The signal was weak and broken, but it was definitely there. And it was definitely not natural. She turned to look at Commander Harper. Her face was pale. "Commander, I am picking up something strange. It is not human. The frequency is completely different from anything in our database." Harper moved quickly to her station. He looked at the readings on her screen and felt his heart begin to beat faster. This was not static. This was not an echo from some distant star. This was a signal. Someone or something was trying to communicate. "Can you clean it up?" he asked. Laura worked the controls with skill born from years of training. Slowly the signal became clearer. It was still fragmented, but now they could make out patterns. It was a language. An alien language. The translation software kicked in automatically. It was designed to find patterns and convert them into something humans could understand. The process took several minutes. The entire bridge crew gathered around the communications station. holding their breath. Then a single word appeared on the screen, "help." Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They all stared at that single word glowing on the display. Somewhere out there in the darkness of space, someone was asking for help. And somehow that cry had reached them. Ensign Kevin Park was the youngest member of the crew. He had dark hair and eager eyes that still held wonder at the vastness of space. He ran the signal through every filter and analyzer available to them. "Sir, the source is approximately 4 light years from our current position. The signal is repeating on a loop. Whatever sent this has been broadcasting for a while. They are desperate." Harper felt a weight settling on his shoulders. 4 light years was not far by cosmic standards. They could reach the source in a matter of days if they pushed the engines hard. But they had no idea what they would find when they got there. It could be a trap. It could be something beyond their ability to handle. It could be anything. Chief Engineer Greg Santos voiced the concern that everyone was thinking. He was a heavy man with thick arms and a practical mind. He kept the Sentinel running no matter what. "Commander, we have no information about what we would be flying into. We do not know who sent this signal or why. We do not know if they are friendly or hostile. This could be extremely dangerous." Harper nodded slowly. Greg was right. Every word he said was reasonable and logical. The safe choice would be to report the signal back to Earth and let someone else deal with it. That was the smart thing to do. But Harper kept staring at that word on the screen. Help? Someone out there was in trouble. Someone out there was alone and afraid and calling out to anyone who might hear. And the Sentinel had heard. He thought about all the times in human history when people had faced impossible odds. He thought about all the times when the smart choice and the right choice were not the same thing. He thought about what kind of species humanity wanted to be as they stepped onto the galactic stage. "Set a course," Harper ordered. His voice was calm and steady. "Full speed. We are going to find out who sent that signal." Laura looked at him with something like admiration in her eyes. "And if it is a trap?" Harper smiled slightly. "Then we will deal with it when we get there. But I am not going to ignore someone asking for help. That is not who we are. That is not who humans have ever been." The Sentinel changed course and jumped toward the unknown. Behind them, the safe and familiar territory of human space grew smaller and smaller. Ahead of them lay darkness and mystery and the first alien contact in human history. None of them knew that this moment would change everything. None of them knew that a single word would set in motion events that would reshape the entire galaxy. All they knew was that someone needed help, and humans always answered that call. The Sentinel dropped out of hyperspace near a small moon that orbited a massive gas giant. The planet was beautiful in a cold and distant way. Bands of orange and red swirled across its surface like paint mixed by a cosmic hand. But nobody on the bridge paid any attention to the view. Their eyes were fixed on something else entirely. A ship floated in the void ahead of them. It was unlike anything humans had ever built. The design was smooth and organic, as if it had been grown rather than constructed. The hull curved in ways that seemed impossible. There were no sharp edges, no visible weapons, no obvious engines. It looked almost like a living creature frozen in space, but this creature was dying. Scorch marks covered the outer surface. Entire sections had been torn open, exposing the interior to the vacuum of space. Debris drifted around it like blood from a wound. Whatever had happened here, it had been violent, and recent Dock Commander Harper studied the damaged vessel through the main view screen. His jaw was tight, and his hands were clenched at his sides. "Life signs?" he asked. Dr. Amy Nelson was the ship's medical officer. She was a small woman with kind eyes and steady hands. She worked her console with practiced efficiency, scanning the alien ship for any indication of survivors. I am detecting faint biological signatures. 12, maybe 15 individuals. But they are weak, Commander. Very weak. They are fading fast. Harper did not hesitate. He had made his decision the moment he saw the damaged ship. Prep a boarding team. Full combat gear. We do not know what attacked them, and we do not know if the threat is still nearby. Mitchell, you are with me. Santos, keep the engines running hot. If we need to leave in a hurry, I want to be ready. Greg Santos nodded from his station. Understood, Commander. I will have us ready to jump at a moment's notice. The boarding team assembled in the shuttle bay. There were 6 of them in total, including Harper and Laura. They wore armored suits designed for hostile environments. Each of them carried weapons, though Harper hoped they would not need to use them. They climbed into a small shuttle pod and launched toward the alien vessel. The journey across the gap between ships took only minutes, but it felt much longer. Everyone was silent, lost in their own thoughts. They were about to make first contact with an alien species. Everything humanity had ever dreamed about was about to become real. And it was happening not with celebration and ceremony, but with a rescue mission in the middle of nowhere. They found an opening in the damaged hull and guided the shuttle inside. The interior of the alien ship was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered in strange colors, casting blue and purple shadows on the walls. The air was thin but breathable. The corridors were narrow, built for being smaller than humans. The team had to crouch and squeeze through passages that were never designed for them. They followed the life signs deeper into the ship. The sounds of their own breathing echoed in their helmets. Every corner could hide a threat. Every shadow could contain something terrible. But they kept moving forward because somewhere ahead, people were dying. They found the survivors in what appeared to be a medical bay. The room was circular with beds arranged along the walls. Strange machines beeped and hummed, trying to keep their patients alive. And on those beds and huddled in corners were the aliens. They were small, perhaps 4 feet tall at most. Their skin was smooth and gray, almost silver in the flickering light. Their eyes were large and dark, like pools of black water. They had thin limbs and delicate fingers. They looked fragile, like creatures made of glass. When the humans entered the room, the aliens reacted with pure terror. They pressed themselves against the walls, trying to make themselves as small as possible. Some of them made sounds, high-pitched and trembling. They were afraid. They were more afraid of the humans than they had been of whatever attacked their ship. One alien stepped forward. It was trembling so badly it could barely stand. It held a small device in its hand, and when it spoke, the device translated its words into broken English. "You are humans. From the Death World." Harper slowly lowered his weapon. He raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "We received your distress signal. We are here to help you." The alien stared at him with those huge dark eyes. Its expression was impossible to read, but something in its posture changed. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Confusion, maybe. Or disbelief. "You came," the alien said. "You actually came. No one comes for the Volari, especially not Deathworlders. Everyone in the galaxy knows that humans are dangerous. Everyone knows to stay away from your kind. But you came." Lavra stepped forward beside her commander. Her voice was gentle when she spoke. "What happened here? Who attacked you?" The alien, who identified itself as Ambassador Kira of the Volari Collective, told them everything. The words came out in a rush, tumbling over each other like water breaking through a dam. There was a hostile empire called the Dominion. They were conquerors who moved from system to system, taking what they wanted and destroying everything else. They had attacked the Volari homeworld without warning. The Volari were a peaceful species. They had no weapons, no military, no way to defend themselves. They had sent distress calls to the Galactic Council, begging for help. But the Council had done nothing. They were too afraid of the Dominion to intervene. The Council fears them, Kira explained. Everyone fears them. The Dominion has never been defeated. They have never even been challenged. They take what they want and nobody stops them because nobody can. Harper felt something cold and hard forming in his chest. It was anger. Pure and simple anger at the injustice of it all. It was a species that had done nothing wrong. They were peaceful and kind and helpless. And they were being destroyed while the rest of the galaxy watched and did nothing. How many of your people are still out there? He asked. Kira's voice was barely a whisper. Millions. Our entire civilization. They are trapped on our homeworld. The Dominion fleet surrounds the planet. They will begin harvesting within days. Harvesting. That is what they call it. They will take our people and use them as slaves. Those who resist will be killed. Those who are too weak or too old will be killed. Our children will grow up in chains. The other Valari were watching now. They had stopped hiding. They were looking at the humans with something new in their eyes. It might have been hope, or it might have been the desperate prayer of creatures who had nothing left to lose. Harper looked at his team. He saw Laura with her jaw set in determination. He saw the others with fire in their eyes. They were all thinking the same thing. They had come here to answer a distress call. They had found something much bigger than they expected. And now they had a choice to make. He turned back to Ambassador Kira. His voice was steady and certain. Then we better move fast. Take us to your homeworld. We are going to help you. Kira stared at him as if he had spoken in a language the translator could not understand. You would fight the Dominion? For us? You do not even know us. Harper smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made a decision and would not turn back. We know enough. Someone is hurting innocent people. That is all we need to know. The Valari began to weep. They had called for help expecting nothing, and the most dangerous species in the galaxy had answered. The USS Sentinel carried the Valari survivors across the stars to a place called Nexus Prime. It was a massive space station that floated in neutral territory, far from any single empire or civilization. The station was ancient, built thousands of years ago by species that no longer existed. It had become the meeting place for the Galactic Council, the governing body that supposedly kept peace among the stars. Commander, Harper had never seen anything like Nexus Prime. The station was enormous, large enough to hold millions of beings. Ships of every shape and size docked along its outer rings. Lights glittered across its surface like a city suspended in the void. It was beautiful and impressive, and it filled Harper with a strange mixture of wonder and disgust. This place had the power to help the Valari. These beings had resources and ships and technology beyond anything humanity possessed. And yet they had done nothing while an entire civilization was being destroyed. Harper intended to find out why. The council chamber was located at the heart of the station. It was a vast circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers around a central platform. Representatives from dozens of species filled those seats, watching as the humans entered. Some of them were curious. Some of them were afraid. None of them seemed welcoming. Harper walked to the center of the platform with Laura and Ambassador Kira beside him. He looked up at the assembled delegates and felt the weight of their stares. These were beings who had watched humanity from a distance for centuries. They had judged his species without ever speaking to them. Now they would hear what a human had to say. High Counselor Veth spoke first. It was a tall insectoid creature with multiple limbs and eyes that glittered like black gems. Its voice was cold and clicking, translated into English by the chamber systems. Humans, you were not invited to this assembly. Your presence here is a violation of countless protocols and traditions. You had no right to enter our space or approach this station." Harper did not flinch. "We intercepted a distress signal from the Volari. We responded to that signal because someone was asking for help. When we arrived, we found survivors of an attack by the Dominion. We brought them here so they could address this council directly." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The delegates shifted in their seats, glancing at each other with expressions that ranged from nervous to annoyed. Nobody seemed surprised by what Harper had said. They all knew about the Volari. They all knew about the Dominion. They simply did not care. A reptilian delegate named Sorn leaned forward in his seat. He was covered in green scales, and his eyes were yellow with slit pupils. His voice was a hiss that dripped with contempt. "You do not understand galactic politics, Deathworlder. The Dominion is too powerful. Confrontation would mean war. War would mean death and destruction on a scale your primitive species cannot imagine. We have chosen peace." "You have chosen to let innocent people die," Harper replied. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath the words. "That is not peace. That is cowardice." The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Delegates shouted in languages Harper could not understand. Some of them rose from their seats, pointing at the humans with fury in their eyes. But Harper stood his ground. He had not come here to make friends. He had come here to speak the truth. High Counselor Veth raised its limbs, and the chamber slowly fell silent. "You speak boldly for a species that has barely left its own solar system. Humanity has a handful of ships. You have no eyes. You have no understanding of the forces at play in this galaxy. The Dominion has conquered over 100 worlds. Their fleet numbers in the thousands. Their weapons can crack planets open like eggs. What could you possibly do against such power?" Lavra stepped forward. Her voice was sharp and clear. "How many systems have you watched them take while you sat here debating? How many species have been enslaved while you talked about protocols and traditions? You are not keeping peace. You are just waiting for your turn to be conquered." Ambassador Kira raised its small voice. The Volari was trembling, but it refused to stay silent. "I came to this council 3 times. 3 times I begged for help. 3 times I was told to wait, to be patient, to trust in diplomacy. And while I waited, the Dominion burned my cities. They took my people. My family is trapped on our homeworld right now, waiting to be harvested, and you did nothing." The chamber was silent now. Some of the delegates looked away, unable to meet the Volari's eyes. Others simply stared with expressions that might have been shame or might have been indifference. It was impossible to tell. A being of flowing light called Elara spoke from the upper tiers. Its voice was soft and musical, almost kind. "We understand your pain, Ambassador. We truly do, but the humans must understand reality. They are new to the stars. They do not comprehend what they are suggesting. Fighting the Dominion would not save the Volari. It would simply add more bodies to the pile." Harper shook his head slowly. "You keep telling us what we do not understand. But I think we understand perfectly. You are afraid. All of you. You have lived in fear for so long that you have forgotten what courage looks like. You have convinced yourselves that survival is the same as living. It is not." He turned in a slow circle, looking at each delegate in turn. "Earth has a saying. Evil wins when good people do nothing. I have seen the Volari survivors. I have looked into their eyes. I have heard their stories. The Dominion is evil. Pure and simple evil. And you are letting it spread because fighting it might be dangerous." High Counselor Veth made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sigh. "And what do you propose, human? Your species has perhaps 60 ships capable of combat. The Dominion has thousands. You would be destroyed in hours." Harper smiled. Something in that smile made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator showing its teeth. You do not know humanity very well. We have spent our entire existence fighting things that should have killed us. Our ancestors faced predators with nothing but sticks and stones. We survived ice ages and plagues and disasters that wiped out countless other species. We did not evolve on a gentle world like yours. We evolved on a planet that tried to murder us every single day. And we did not just survive, we conquered it. He began walking toward the exit. Lavra and Kira followed close behind. The delegates watched in stunned silence. Harper paused at the door and turned back one final time. Stay here if you want. Hide behind your protocols and your traditions and your fear. But when the Dominion comes for you, and they will eventually, remember this moment. Remember that the Deathworlders tried to warn you. Remember that we offered to fight while you chose to cower. He walked out of the chamber without looking back. The doors closed behind him with a sound that echoed through the silent room. Elara turned to High Counselor Veth. Do you think they will actually try to fight the Dominion? Veth's multiple eyes blinked slowly. They are Deathworlders. They are insane by our standards. Who knows what they might do? Should we warn the Dominion? Veth considered the question for a long moment. No, let us wait and see what happens. Perhaps the humans will provide an interesting distraction. And if they are destroyed, well, that solves another problem entirely. The council returned to their debates and discussions. They had no idea that they had just witnessed the beginning of the end of everything they knew. Word spread through human space faster than anyone thought possible. The story of the Valari, the Cowardly Council, and the Dominion threat traveled from ship to ship and colony to colony like wildfire. People who had never met an alien suddenly found themselves faced with a choice. They could stay safe in their own corner of the galaxy, or they could stand up for a species they had never known existed until a few weeks ago. Humanity chose to fight. Commander Harper sent his report directly to Earth Command, bypassing the usual chain of bureaucracy. Within hours, the highest levels of government were discussing the situation. Within days, a decision had been made. Humanity would not stand by while innocent people were enslaved. It went against everything they believed in. It went against everything they were. Admiral Nicole Grant took command of the newly formed Earth Defense Coalition. She was a woman in her 50s, with silver hair cut short and eyes that had seen more than their share of battles. She had spent her entire career preparing for threats that never came. Now, the biggest threat in galactic history was knocking at the door, and she intended to answer it. Her flagship was the USS Ironclad, the largest vessel humanity had ever built. It was not pretty like the alien ships. It was not elegant or graceful. It was a brutal machine designed for one purpose, and one purpose only: war. The mobilization happened with a speed that shocked even the humans themselves. Ships that had been designed for exploration were pulled back to shipyards and retrofitted with weapons. Mining vessels were reinforced with armor and converted into troop transports. Cargo freighters became supply ships. Everything that could fly was repurposed for the coming conflict. On colony worlds across human space, factories that had been producing consumer goods switched to military production. Engineers worked double shifts designing new weapons and defensive systems. Scientists pored over the data from the Valari, looking for any weakness in Dominion technology that could be exploited. Intelligence officer Megan Blake established a command center aboard the Ironclad. She was young for her position, barely 30 years old, with sharp features and sharper instincts. Ambassador Kira worked alongside her, providing everything the Valari knew about their enemy. The Dominion has never faced real resistance, Kira explained, pointing at tactical displays that showed enemy ship configurations. They are used to overwhelming force and immediate surrender. Most species give up the moment they see the Dominion fleet. Fighting back is simply not something that happens. Megan studied the information carefully, so they are overconfident. They expect to win easily. That could work in our favor. Kira nodded slowly. Perhaps, but do not underestimate them. They have conquered over 100 worlds for a reason. Their ships are powerful. Their soldiers are trained. They may be arrogant, but they are not weak. On the ground, preparations were equally intense. Sergeant Tony Russo was assigned to train the first wave of ground troops for the assault on Valari Prime. He was a big man with scarred hands and a voice like gravel. He had fought in conflicts on 3 different colony worlds before this. None of that prepared him for what he was about to face. He drilled his soldiers in conditions that would have killed members of most other species. They trained in desert heat that reached 120 degrees. They trained in mountain cold that dropped below 0. They trained in rain and mud and wind that could knock a person off their feet. The Dominion thinks they are the apex predators of this galaxy, Russo told his troops during one brutal training session. They have never met anything like us. Our ancestors hunted mammoths with spears. Our grandparents stormed beaches under machine gun fire. Our parents survived on a planet that throws hurricanes and earthquakes and volcanoes at us like it is trying to shake us off. We are not prey. We have never been prey. And we are about to show these Dominion bastards what happens when you threaten our friends. The soldiers cheered. They were exhausted and battered and pushed beyond their limits. But they believed. Every single one of them believed that what they were doing mattered. Admiral Grant gathered her senior officers for a final strategy session. Commander Harper was there, along with Megan Blake. Commander Ryan Cole, who served as Grant's executive officer, and a dozen other key personnel. A holographic map of the Valari system floated in the center of the room. Intelligence indicates approximately 300 Dominion vessels around Valari Prime, Megan reported. We have managed to assemble 62 ships of various sizes. The math is not in our favor. Commander Cole frowned at the display. 300 to 62. Those are terrible odds. Grant nodded calmly. We have faced worse. The Spartans held Thermopylae with 300 soldiers against an army of hundreds of thousands. The defenders at the Alamo held off thousands with fewer than 200. Humans have a long history of winning battles we should have lost. She outlined her plan. A small strike force would jump into the system first, creating a diversion and drawing Dominion ships away from the main fleet. Then the bulk of human forces would hit the remaining enemy vessels hard and fast, breaking their formation. The goal was not to destroy the entire Dominion fleet. The goal was to create an opening, a window through which ground troops could reach Valari Prime and begin liberating the planet. It is risky, Grant admitted. A lot of things have to go right for this to work. But I believe in this crew. I believe in every person who volunteered for this mission. And I believe that what we are doing is right. That counts for something. The fleet assembled at a staging point far from any inhabited system. 62 ships hung in the darkness, their crews making final preparations. Some people wrote letters to loved ones they might never see again. Some people prayed to whatever gods they believed in. Some people simply sat in silence, thinking about what was to come. Harper stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, looking out at the assembled fleet. The ship that had started this journey with a single distress signal was now part of something much larger. He felt pride and fear and determination all mixed together in his chest. Admiral Grant's voice came through the communication system, broadcast to every ship in the fleet. For centuries, the galaxy has watched us from a distance. They called us dangerous. They called us unpredictable. They were afraid of what we might become. Today they will see exactly what humanity is capable of. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as protectors. The Valari called for help, and we answered. That is who we are. That is what Deathworlders do. She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. I will not lie to you. Many of us will not come back from this. The enemy outnumbers us badly. They have more ships, more weapons, more experience. But they do not have what we have. They do not have the courage to fight for something beyond themselves. They do not have the willingness to sacrifice everything for people they have never met. That is our advantage. That is what makes us human. The countdown began. Engines powered up across the fleet. Navigation systems locked onto the coordinates of the Valari system. Hearts pounded in 62 ships as thousands of humans prepared to jump into the unknown. All ships engage. The fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind empty darkness and the fading echoes of hope. Somewhere ahead, millions of Valari waited for a rescue that most of the galaxy believed would never come. They were about to be proven wrong. The human fleet burst out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 62 ships appeared in the void near Valari Prime like wolves emerging from a dark forest. Their weapons were armed and ready. Their crews were focused and determined. They had come to fight. The Dominion was not expecting them. For generations, the Dominion had conquered without challenge. They would arrive at a world, demonstrate their overwhelming power, and watch as the population surrendered. It was efficient and predictable. Nobody had ever been foolish enough to fight back. So when their sensors detected the human fleet, the Dominion commanders did not know what to think. Who were these tiny ships? Where had they come from? Why were they not running away like every other species in the galaxy? They got their answer in blood and fire. The first wave of human ships tore into the Dominion patrol lines like a blade through cloth. The Sentinel led the assault, Commander Harper shouting orders from his command chair as his crew worked with perfect precision. Their weapons found weak points in Dominion shields. Their maneuvers exploited gaps in enemy formations. They fought with a ferocity that the Dominion had never encountered. Lieutenant Laura Mitchell tracked dozens of targets on her display. Enemy communications are going crazy. They do not understand what is happening. They keep asking for orders, but their command structure is falling apart. Harper allowed himself a grim smile. Good. Keep the pressure on. Do not give them time to regroup. Across the battlefield, the human fleet struck like a storm. The Dominion ships were larger and more powerful, but they were slow and overconfident. They had never needed to develop tactics for actual combat. They had never needed to think on their feet or adapt to changing situations. The humans had spent thousands of years doing exactly that. Admiral Grant commanded the main assault from the bridge of the Ironclad. Her flagship pushed deep into the enemy formation, drawing fire away from the smaller vessels. Around her, human cruisers and destroyers worked in coordinated groups, supporting each other and overwhelming isolated Dominion ships. Enemy flagship is trying to rally their forces, Commander Cole reported. They are pulling back to protect it. Grant studied the tactical display. The Dominion commander was doing exactly what she had hoped. By concentrating around their flagship, they were leaving gaps in their defensive perimeter. Gaps that could be exploited. Signal the landing force. Begin ground assault. We have our opening. Dropships detached from the human transports and plunged toward Valari Prime. They screamed through the atmosphere, their hulls glowing with the heat of re-entry. Inside, soldiers checked their weapons and said silent prayers. They knew that what came next would be the hardest part. Sergeant Tony Russo was the first human to set foot on Valari soil. He stepped out of his dropship into a city that had been beautiful once. Now it was a war zone. Buildings were crumbling. Fires burned in the distance. The streets were filled with debris and the bodies of those who had tried to resist. Valari civilians huddled in doorways and alleys, watching the strange aliens who had fallen from the sky. They had heard stories about the Deathworlders. They had been taught to fear humans more than almost anything. But these Deathworlders were fighting the Dominion. These Deathworlders had come to help. Push forward, Russo commanded his squad. Clear the streets. Watch for civilians. Our job is to protect these people, not add to their suffering. The Dominion ground forces were not prepared for close combat with humans. They were larger and stronger in some ways. They had better armor and more advanced weapons. But they lacked something that no technology could provide. They lacked the killer instinct that humans had developed over millions of years of evolution. Russo and his soldiers moved through the city with deadly efficiency. They cleared buildings and secured intersections. They freed prisoners from Dominion holding facilities. They did things that should have been impossible against a numerically superior enemy. In orbit, the battle continued to rage. Dominion ships were falling one by one, unable to match the human tactics. Their commanders sent increasingly desperate messages back to their empire, warning of a new threat that defied everything they understood about galactic warfare. The Dominion flagship tried to flee. It turned its massive bulk toward open space, abandoning its forces on the planet below. It never made it to hyperspace. A concentrated assault from half a dozen human vessels tore through its shields and gutted its engines. It drifted helplessly, a broken monument to arrogance. When the shooting finally stopped, over 200 Dominion vessels had been destroyed or captured. Human losses were significant, but far lighter than anyone had predicted. On the ground, city after city was being liberated. The Lari civilians were emerging from hiding, staring at their human rescuers with wonder and gratitude. Ambassador Kira found Commander Harper standing on the bridge of the Sentinel. The small alien looked out at the planet below, tears streaming down its gray face. Its homeworld was scarred and wounded, but it was free. Its people were alive. "You came," Kira whispered. "You actually came. When no one else would help us, you came." Harper placed a gentle hand on the ambassador's shoulder. "I told you, we do not leave anyone behind. It is not who we are." Kira turned to look at him with those large, dark eyes. "The galaxy will never be the same after this. The Dominion has never been defeated. When word spreads of what happened here, everything will change." It did change. In the weeks that followed, delegations from a dozen worlds reached out to humanity. Species that had hidden from humans out of fear now sought them out as allies. Trade agreements were signed. Alliances were formed. The Galactic Council, so confident in their predictions of human failure, found themselves facing a new reality. High Counselor Veth requested a meeting with Admiral Grant, the insectoid leader who had dismissed humanity so easily. Now spoke with careful respect. "You have done something unprecedented. The Dominion will not forget this defeat. They will return with greater force." Grant met the counselor's many eyes without flinching. "Let them come. We will be ready. You cannot fight them alone forever." Then perhaps it is time for the Council to stop being afraid. Perhaps it is time for the rest of the galaxy to remember what courage looks like. Veth was silent for a long moment. Then it bowed its head in something that might have been acknowledgement or might have been shame. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps we have forgotten." On Earth, children looked up at the stars with new wonder. Their species was no longer alone in the universe. They had found friends among the stars. They had found enemies too. But they had proven something important. They had proven that humanity would stand up for what was right, even when the odds were impossible. The Valari rebuilt their world with human help. They told stories of the Deathworlders who had answered their call when everyone else turned away. Those stories spread across the galaxy, carried by travelers and traders to every corner of known space. The Dominion was still out there, licking its wounds and planning revenge. Other threats lurked in the darkness between stars. The galaxy was vast and dangerous and full of unknowns. But humanity had announced its presence. The Deathworlders had emerged from the shadows, and they were ready for whatever came next, because that is what humans do. They fight. They survive. They protect those who cannot protect themselves. They are Deathworlders, and they are watching.